Today I speak to executive producer of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, Mike Grinnell, or Grinnelli. Spittin Chiclets is a Barstool pod that presents itself more as a lifestyle brand, which I'm not necessarily saying is infectious even to a non-hockey fan, but Chiclets has grown from a hockey podcast to a hangout for guys, and I quote, to shoot shit locker room style. We talk about Tom Greene 4-hour episodes and what it's like living the dream from going from a so-so hockey player onto a local sports journalist to finally hanging out with his heroes as an integral part of one of the world's most influential podcast brands. Oh, and of course, we discuss the birth of the Pink Whitney. From a production perspective, we discuss how long it takes to turn their mammoth conversations, which are recorded at 11 p.m, into a show that has to be out at 5 a.m. the following morning. And we get some questions submitted by Spittin Chiclets fans. We also talk about how Barstool is the best place on earth to work and how he can meet any of his hockey heroes and not flinch. But when Dave Portnoy walks through the office, he still has a moment. Mike's personal journey is a proper good one. It really is a tale of persistence and determination paying off, and how he pounded the emails of anything at barstoolsports.com until he finally explained to my next Spittin Chiclets guest that he could do everything with his mobile studio, which he had none of. And as Mike explains himself, his view is, if somebody asks, can you do something? You should always say yes. Enjoy. Welcome. Let's kick it off here. I should tell you that when I get my little stat pack from the office in Sweden, the first thing they said to me was, we very much considered starting a secondary chart for Canada because Spittin Chiclets is number one so frequently that it becomes not worth charting. In fact, where was it? On our chart, which is a daily chart, which doesn't just chart listens, it also charts social conversation around those episodes. You were number one 297 times out of 365 days in the last year. Which is extraordinary. And obviously, I'm not talking sports podcasts. I'm talking podcasts. Welcome. Hi, Mike.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to, those are some crazy numbers. Those Canadians love their hockey, huh?
Don't they just? Let's work on the basis that half the people listening are Chiclets fans and half the people listening are podcast fascinators, shall we say. Do you want to just give us a quick overview of who you are and what you and your team do?
Perfect. Yeah. My name is Mike Grinnell. I am the executive producer of Spittin Chiclets, which is a hockey podcast on the Barstool Sports Network with Paul Bissonnette, Ryan Whitney in Rear Admiral. And, one thing that we like to pride ourselves in is we're a lot more than a podcast. I say we're a podcast, but we're a lot more than a podcast. We're a brand. So you could say I'm the executive producer of the Spittin Chiclets brand, is what I like to say.
And it is, as you said, a hockey podcast, but all hockey players, some hockey players. What's the assembly of your crew?
It's funny you say hockey podcast because that's actually something that I don't want to say we're trying to get rid of, but we like talking about everything. So I think we have that hockey podcast because 2 of the 3 hosts played in the NHL.
Yeah.
Hockey is our main goal, is one of the biggest things we talk about. We do a lot of content surrounding hockey, but we also like to talk about other things. We talk about movies. We talk about, what's going on in our everyday life. We talk about golf a lot. And we even do a golf series on YouTube, which is called the Sandbagger Invitational, where Ryan and Paul will go head to head against 2 other, former NHLers or anyone for that matter. And they just play head to head in golf. But as for, hockey versus non-hockey, like we've had tons of guests on that have nothing to do with hockey. Like, for example, Tom Greene. We had Tom Greene on one show just because you get the opportunity to interview Tom Greene. You don't say no,
It's funny you bring him up. He's one of the granddaddies of podcasting, right? He was around for podcasts at the very beginning. What did he think of what you guys now are?
I think he just thought that it's cool that, and it's something that, a lot of people tell us is they feel like they're in the locker room when they hear us talk. When we're just shooting the shit, and it just brings you back to those days of, after practice, you and all your buddies just sitting in the locker room, having a few beers and just talking about life, whether that's hockey or whether that's, where you went and got dinner that night, or, how you shot in the golf course that day.
You say this lifestyle. When Steve first sends me you guys, the first thing I normally do is jump in and listen to as many as I can cram. He said, sit tight. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, they're 3 and 4 hour long episodes every single time. And at that point I said, that can't just be about hockey. That was one of the first things I said. There's no way. And sure enough, it really does have that feel of mates catching up. You just happen to be fortunate that a couple of them were professional sportsmen, which must be a dream scenario, right? For those of you that aren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all a dream scenario for me. I mean, I grew up a hockey player in Boston, wasn't any good. And then at a young age, you kind of realize, hey, like I'm not going to go pro. So how can I find a job or find a life where I'm still involved in the game? And now I get to do this podcast every day with 2 guys who, I mean, Ryan, I idolized Ryan growing up. He's 10 years older than me. He's from the same area I am. And, he was what I wanted to be. He was a pro hockey player from Boston. And now I get to, drink beers with him and go to the casino with him. So it's all pretty crazy to me.
So from your perspective, this wasn't the beginning of your media career. How did we get up to the point where you became a podcaster? What was your running?
So I always knew that I wanted to be involved in sports media. Like I said, I knew at a young age I didn't have what it took to be a professional athlete.
I'm smiling because I completely sympathize with you.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're not making the A team a few years in a row, you're like, all right, I got to find something else here. And I always knew I wanted to do media. And in college, I started my own radio show at the school I was at with one of my good friends, and I'm a schemer. So this is kind of one of the things I do. I'm known for being a schemer, and I then started pitching my radio show, my college radio show, to all these different companies, and it ended up getting picked up by a company called Dirty Water Sports. I did a radio show at different bars across Boston for a full summer. And at the end of the summer, I pitched the show to, and mind you, I'm in college at this point. I'm just a kid I have no clue what I'm doing, but I knew where I wanted to get.
Just doing more stuff in the direction of that.
I wanted to talk sports, and I wanted to be the center of attention. That's exactly what I wanted. And so I pitched the show to ESPN at the end of the summer, ESPN Radio in New Hampshire, and they ended up picking it up. So they didn't know I was still in college. They thought I was, older, and, I kind of had it all together. And so when I went in for my first day, they were a little taken back, but they gave me my own radio show. I did that every Sunday for 2 years in college. And then after college, they offered me a full-time position. And it's actually funny, and this is one of the biggest pieces of advice I give to anyone out there is when you're looking for a job and someone asks you if you can do something, say yes every time. Because they asked me if they had heard rumors that I could build a website. I had no experience building websites. I had never done anything like that. And they asked me, they said, we'll hire you full-time if you can build the website and be our digital content manager, and we'll also give you a daily radio show. And that would run from 6 to 8 p.m. every night. So of course, I accepted, and I did this daily radio show for about a year. And it was awesome. It was pretty cool to be able to just host your own show, talk on the radio every day, kind of inform people about your life. And I know I was on AM radio in New Hampshire, and I wasn't talking to many people, but still, just to be right out of college and to have the opportunity to be on air like that, it was unbelievable. And I was producing the show as well. I was behind the board. So I knew I was learning audio and learning how to, work all these different softwares. And one day my boss came to me, and I grown pretty close with him. And he said, I just got out of a meeting, and 6 months from now, I think this station is going to shut down. You should start thinking about life after ESPN radio. And at that point, I'm right out of college. That was my life. I was planning a life to be on the radio every day from 6 to 8 p.m. for 15 to 20 years. And I was going to do that. And I was happy with it. And he let me know that the station, was going under. And so I started thinking about what's next. What can I do next? And I started applying to all these jobs across the country, radio host here, radio host there. And finally, I realized that I loved Barstool Sports. Barstool Sports is a company that started in Boston, Mass, and it's a company that I knew I always wanted to be a part of. So I used to, during this time period when I was looking for a job, I would type in random first names and then put the email at barstoolsports.com. Just anyone. I would just throw in Brian at barstoolsports.com, Paul at barstoolsports.com, Steve at barstoolsports.com, just hoping that someone would answer and would respond and say and give me a chance. And, one day I got a hold of, Rear Admiral's email, who was a host of Spittin Chiclets. And I know they had done episode 1 of Spittin Chiclets. And I shot him an email, and I told him I had all this equipment, I had all this experience, I had all this stuff.
Yeah,
I had
web design business.
Oh yeah, I could build them a website. I could do everything for them. And I told him I could start their social media, and he emailed me and said, "You're hired. You start Thursday." So
you came on show 2.
I came on in episode 2.
So hang on,
and I've been with him ever since.
That's unreal. So
Yeah.
you basically, as luck would have it, put yourself at the site of the explosion at the very beginning.
I did, yes. And the crazy part, one of the crazy things is I worked for free for almost 2 years. I told them that they didn't have to pay me. I believed in what they were doing, and I knew that someday money would come. I was young, and I knew that I could take risks right now in my life. And that was kind of a tough period in my life to be so dedicated to this job where it's a full-time position, but I wasn't getting paid. So I had to have 2-3 other jobs on the side. I was bartending. I was a PA at NBC, working like nights, overnights. It was crazy. So when the full-time offer finally came from Barstool Sports, it was a really cool moment because, a lot of people say I lucked into this job. A lot of people will say,
it already doesn't sound that way.
If you never shot him the email, you never would have got there, and you're so lucky you answered that email that day. But I worked my ass off to get here, and when for those 2 years when I wasn't getting paid, and I was, bartending during the day and producing news television during the day, bartending at night, that I worked my ass off to get there.
Clearly, the reason I grimaced when you said, and I worked for the first 2 years for nothing. I spoke to the guys at the Le Batard show, and they all had a similar story. Like it was so organic, the growth of where they were, that they were just a part of something. And I think they've even still got guys who are just fringers, who are just part of the show, who just aren't employed. They're just part of the show.
But I think those are the guys that you want to surround yourself with. And I think those are the guys that can really help a show grow because they're not there for the money. I've never been in this for the money. I'm there because I believe in Ryan and Rear Admiral. And now that we've added Paul, I believe in Paul. I believe in what we're building here. I believe in Barstool Sports. And I knew that if I put the time and effort and energy in, that someday it would all pay off.
Had you done a podcast before?
Yeah, I was. So at this point, when my boss had told me in 6 months, the station's going to go under, that's when I started, really looking to the future of, what's next. It doesn't seem like AM radio is going to be around forever. How can I, be innovative and try to be a step ahead of everyone as opposed to a step behind everyone, like I was with the AM radio show. So I looked to podcasting. I knew my friend Jared Carabas, who works at Barstool. He had this podcast called the Section 10 podcast. It was just a Red Sox podcast that I listened to all the time. And I kind of thought, wow, I still have this radio studio. I still have the keys, at least, to this studio. So maybe I'll just go in at nights and start my own hockey podcast. So I did this show. It was called, I did one called Grinnell Unleashed. And it was this podcast I did just by myself. And I would just go in and record and just kind of just talk about nothing and, interview some like low name media guys, anyone that would come and talk to me. And that's kind of what was in my pitch to Barstool and Rear Admiral was, hey, I have a podcast. I know what I'm doing here. I've done this for a little while now. I know how to make the audio sound nice. I know how to promote it on social media. I know how to build this into something more than just an hour of audio that's slapped onto the internet. And that's kind of why he took a chance on me.
It sounds like you are, when people say, oh, you were lucky, that even that story you tell there, that it's so hard to explain to people when they start podcasts that the podcast they are starting then might not be the podcast that they end up doing their podcast with, but you are learning so much, especially if you're sitting there on your own talking into a random borrowed mic and trying to do your best to edit with what you can. You learn so much during that time. And then when you start moving in the podcast circles, you start being able to talk like you're in podcasting, and then it grows. And it's one of those barriers that I wish people could get past. They could almost do a podcast about anything just to start learning that process.
Definitely. And you hear, I think the average podcast only lasts 6 episodes, and it's people are so quick to give up and throw in the towel. And that's one thing with Spittin Chiclets where it's we weren't even getting 1/10 of the listens that we get now for our first year and a half. We did 50, 60 episodes before we were getting big numbers. And we just kept going and going and going because it was just something we loved to do. But I feel like you see so many people nowadays, they come out of the gate and their podcast isn't in the top 10 or it's not in the top 20 and they're not getting 50,000 downloads out the gate. But it's kind of like you said, it takes time. It might not be this podcast. It might be something else. This could lead to something else, but it's still, I feel people throw in the towel too quickly.
Yeah. What was your podcast 001 for you? What you said you were breaking into your mate's studio, so you had some proper gear to begin with.
Well, so I didn't have, it's funny because I told Rear Admiral that I had all this equipment. And I thought that the radio station I was working at would let me use the equipment that they had. I was wrong. So basically right after Rear Admiral had emailed me and said, you're hired, you start Thursday, I got in my car, drove to the store. I went to Guitar Center in Nashua, New Hampshire. And I said, hey, man, I went up to the guy at the front desk and I said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. I need the best equipment you have, the best mics, everything. And it needs to be very simple because I have no clue what I'm doing here. And the guy sat there, took about 40 minutes, explained everything to me. And then I showed up for my first day with Spittin Chiclets and was like, oh, I've been doing this for years. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Peeling
here,
the plastic off the mixers.
Yeah, taking the plastic off, taking the price tags off. Like, oh yeah, this old thing.
What was it? Do you remember what it was? What was the kit that you started with?
It was a Yamaha. I still have it actually. It's actually in my bedroom. It was a Yamaha board with just some 3 or 4 Shure mics. And it was funny because the first day I showed up, I said, "Hey, what equipment do you guys have here?" And we'll see if I can use your equipment. If not, I have all my stuff out in the car, because I didn't want to go break out the new equipment. I was doing anything and everything to not break out.
Yeah, what have you got?
Yeah, because first off, I'm like, I want to return this and go get the money back. And 2, I don't know how to use any of this. And they had a little audio box with 1 microphone, and they would get about 6 inches away from each other, just like this, and both talking to the microphone. And I still have a picture of it on my phone. And I was like, "Oh, guys, no.
We're going to need everything in the car."
Yeah, let's go get it all.
Fast forward to where we are now. Obviously, statistics in podcast land are tricky to judge at the best of times. Seems like a convenient but definite segue into the whole point of Podboard, is because it's looking at, are people actually talking about the episodes as well? Because things like legacy downloads, where you've subscribed 3 years ago, your phone's been sucking down episodes. You can't work out why your iPhone's full, and you work out you've got 32 gigs of podcasts that you've never listened to.
Exactly.
So look, there's a lot of correlation between the official charts and the Podboard. There are some nice differences. It brings some smaller pods up because of their loyalty and following, and that basically tees up this Chiclets community that you guys have established, I guess, over time. But it sounds like from the beginning, it was part of the vision in terms of how the thing was going to work. What's your proudest moment of that community existing?
Man, I don't know if we could have ever imagined a community like this. Like, I can tell you a story. So we did our first live show, or attempted our first live show, at Chicago a few years ago. And when the outdoor games were there, and we thought we booked this small bar thinking, if we can pack it, I guess that would be unbelievable, but there's no way, like, we fill both floors. There's no way we pack this place tonight. We got a call from the manager about 3 hours before the bar opened that the line was all the way down the street and around the corner. And even when we got there, it was still a full house, and the line was all the way down the street and all the way around the corner. And that's where we were like, guys, I think we have something here. These fans really appreciate us and love us. And that's kind of when we started being like, all right, we need to go out and see them. We need to go do these events and see people as much as possible. And I think every event we do, it's more and more people show up, and you're just so shocked about it. For example, this past weekend, we did a roller hockey tournament. We did this street inline tournament and roller hockey tournament in Detroit. And it was an unbelievable time. And, we had teams from all across the continent signing up, which was really cool to see. And, I was talking to this one guy who had told me that he didn't even have, he wasn't playing in the tournament, but he had drove from Tampa, Florida, just to come and have the opportunity to meet us, which is so crazy to me that someone would drive 20 hours just to come meet a couple podcasters. It's so crazy, and how loyal these people are. It's incredible. And every time we go and do these events, it wows us more and more and more how awesome and how loyal all of our fans are.
Obviously, you started in what some might consider conventional media. Well, I would guess AM radio is about as conventional as media can be.
Yeah, I would agree.
Presumably, forgive me, I'm not familiar with the landscape in terms of what it looks like. When you work on a local AM radio station, how many people are listening to you when you're...
My show, 40 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not getting many, man.
So there's no listen again or anything like that, presumably? There's no infrastructure where they're capturing you and playing it elsewhere, or...
Well, we would and that was kind of one of the things that I tried to bring to that radio station was, hey, like, let's record we have all the edited audio. I mean, the show audio here. Let's post this on our website now. So we would start to do that, where we would post
what year was that?
all the old shows on our website.
What year was
Say
that?
that again?
What year was that?
This would have to be 2015.
Okay.
So this is 6 years ago now.
So you start posting the audio on the website. And
yeah, so we start posting the audio on the website, and it kind of just went from there.
So this Barstool, you cited them as I wanted to work at Barstool. What's it like being part of that Barstool family? Because from the outside in, it looks insane. I remember when Google first built their crazy offices, whenever it was 20 odd years ago, and you looked at those pictures and you were like, oh my God, I want to work there. You now look at Barstool and you're like, I want to work there. That looks, is it like that?
It is exactly like that. It's the best place on the earth to work. I couldn't be happier working here. And it's like I said, I've been a fan of Barstool, I think, since 2009, 2010. So yeah, it's crazy to me because I don't really get, as a diehard hockey fan, I've met Sidney Crosby. I've met the biggest names in the sport, and I don't really get starstruck by them. But when you see Dave Portnoy walking through the office, still to this day, I still am like, that's Dave. Like, that's Big Cat. Like, these guys are guys that I idolized growing up. And a guy like KFC. KFC is a guy who I used to read KFC's blogs every single day. And last night I had a few beers with him. And it's like that part is always something that will be so crazy to me is how much I looked up to these guys and how bad I wanted to work here. And now they're my friends, they're my coworkers. I see them every day. It's a dream come true, to be honest with you. I love working here, and Barstool has done so much for Spittin Chiclets where they give us the creative freedom that we want, which is all you can ask for from a parent company like Barstool is give us the freedom, and we promise we'll return the favor. And I think we've done that for them, and they've done it for us.
So did they ever get involved? Are they ever like, guys, stop! You can't, don't do that.
No, never. And that's the best. That's kind of what I'm saying is like that's the absolute best thing at Barstool is they let us be us. They'll you see guys on hockey TV now that, they're really not allowed to let loose, and they're really not allowed to say what they're thinking. And, that's not us. We can go from talking about the Oilers power play to Biz taking a shit in his trash can in his kitchen because his toilet was clogged. Like, they're never going to tell us, hey, that's out of line, guys. Like, and it's also on us to know that. It's if we start pissing off sponsors,
you write your own line in that regard.
It's like,
right?
Hey guys, you might be losing some sponsors here, and it's like, all right, well, we understand then now we'll tone it back. But that's never even happened.
Yeah,
because the sponsors all know what they're getting involved with too. Is when you come on for the Spittin Chiclets brand, this is what you're getting, and we try to stay true to that.
You said the first 30, 40 episodes were tough. How many people listened to the first lot? It was with Barstool from the beginning?
Yeah. Rear Admiral and Ryan did a few episodes before Barstool. They just posted them to SoundCloud.
Right.
Barstool picked them up. They did episode 1, and then I joined for episode 2. And what was your original question? Sorry, I forgot it there.
When you did those first 40 odd.
Oh, yes.
How many people were listening?
So, I mean, off the jump, 20, 30,000. I think the most we ever really got was up to 60 or 70,000.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, compared to what we do now, like that was nothing.
Well, it's now it's like 500,000 an episode or something, isn't it?
Yeah, a little more.
Is it? Go on, don't be bashful. Because I'm gonna make you blush in a minute. Go on, tell me where do you reckon it is at the moment?
I would say it's around 600,000.
Right.
700,000. It depends who we have on that week.
I'm sure the other guys won't mind me saying when I spoke about you to people to find out about you, you were often referred to as the driver, the guy that does everything, the guy that's steering the ship. What you sound like you've done that your whole life. Like everywhere you've been, you've grabbed an extra bit or just tried to make sure that you were doing something else. With Barstool, how what idea are you allowed to go in with? Presumably your head must be exploding now you're in a situation where you can basically make stuff up as you go along, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's actually crazy to kind of be steering the ship here and be kind of running this crazy business operation now that we have. And from the business side of things to the content side of things to the keeping the talent happy side of things, it's crazy. And I always try to, people say, what do you do? Like, what is your position? I say, I try to compare it to E from Entourage, where it's like, I do everything. My main job is to keep the guys happy. If I can keep Paul, Ryan, and Rear Admiral happy, that's all that matters. And it's crazy sometimes where I can be in a meeting. I can go from one meeting where I'm leading a meeting talking to our memes guy about, making funny memes about making fun of RA or Biz. And then I go to the next meeting where we're on the phone with like the NHL and we're discussing, rights, or we're having these big conversations where, I'm suddenly leading the charge of like a TV rights call.
What happens when you I bear in mind my life is podcast, right? So let's pre-declare that. A guy from a podcast ends up with a seat at the table that is presumably in an arena which is fairly institutionalized, somewhere like hockey and rights managements and all of that. Are you what happens? How does that interface? Presumably you're not sitting with people like you or I, you're sitting with very different people. Or people anyone you'd sit with at Barstool, presumably they don't exist.
And I think that's kind of one of the cool things about Barstool is like sometimes you go into these meetings and I'm in like shorts and a t-shirt and it's like, you see all these guys in like suits and stuff. And it's like, oh, well, got to turn that Barstool switch off here quick. But I think so I came in and I was the audio guy, that was my job.
Yeah.
And I think, as you know, there's not much growth, I think, in being just an audio guy. In life, in your career, and I wanted to be more than that. And obviously we struck lightning in a bottle here with Spittin Chiclets. We've really built something special. So I've just tried to do my best in growing it in every way possible. And if that means I have to sit down at a conversation with, talk to the NHL, I'll talk to the NHL. If that means I have to, go out and drink 1 million Pink Whitneys with a bunch of fans, I'll do that too. But whatever it takes to grow this brand, I'll do it. And the absolute best thing in the world is that Ryan, Paul, and Rear Admiral have the faith in me to let me make the decisions that I want to help grow this brand. Like, for example, with this street hockey tournament we did this past week, this was just an idea I had. It was something that over the pandemic, I started rollerblading again. I fell back in love with playing street hockey and rollerblading and getting outside and growing that aspect of the game. And I told them that, hey, like, I think we can do this. I really think that if we wanted to, we could run a street hockey tournament. We've done a pond hockey tournament before. Who's to say we can't do a street hockey tournament? And they were like, hey buddy, do your thing. We trust you. We know you'll make it great. And you have our 100% support. And if I ever had any questions, I would go to them and ask, hey, what do you think about this? Should we try this? And they'd always give me an answer that we'd always put to use. And just the fact that they would, trust their old audio guy, the guy that just came in just to edit their audio, to, run a street hockey tournament with, hundreds and hundreds of people. And, the whole event itself is is unbelievable that they would put that trust in me. And that's one of the best aspects of this job.
From where it was to where it is now, obviously are different things, but all of the other bits, this community stuff you're talking about, the extra stuff in conventional podcast land, how many of the traditional things do you do, like merch and that sort of stuff? Obviously, you guys are very active out there doing stuff with people. That's kind of different, right? That's not a normal podcast thing. But presumably people are clambering all over you to get hold of Spittin Chiclets gear. Is that a big thing for you?
I think that's kind of, it goes back to my point about, we want to be so much more than just a podcast. We want to be a merchandise brand. We want to be a place where you can go listen audio. We want a place where you can go listen video. We want to have a full, our YouTube page has so many different types of content that you can consume. But the merchandise that's a big aspect of my job, is doing all the merchandise. So for example, I design these hats, these shirts, and then it's my job to get it out there and promote it to people. And that's something that was kind of put on me when I had first signed my contract. It was
another one of you going, yeah, I do that, no problem.
Exactly. They're like, hey, can you do the merch? Do you
YouTube, do you have any Photoshop? Right, yeah, great, no problem.
How to design t-shirt. Yeah, and we've kind of run with it ever since. We sell a lot of merchandise. Merchandise is a big way for us to make money, and merch is also one of those things that, it allows us to be ourselves. If sponsors back out, and thank God they never have, but if sponsors ever back out, or anything was to ever happen, we still have that line of revenue that's merchandise. And we have such an amazing logo, which the Spittin Chiclets logo I have in this hat here, it is such an awesome logo that Rear Admiral designed years ago on a napkin, that it makes it so easy for me. I just slap it on anything and it looks good. And Barstool has given us all the resources in the world. They've given us an unbelievable merch team at Barstool, that we talk every day. Every day they're like, hey, what do you think of this? We're getting these new mocks in. Do you like these? What do you think? And it makes it a lot easier on me to have the resources that Barstool provides. But the merchandise is something that, it's another thing. I can't really believe how much it's grown when you're sitting in those year-end meetings and you're getting told how much merchandise you sold this past year. You're like, wow, people really are enjoying this. And my girlfriend yells at me all the time, because if you go in my closet now, that's all I wear.
Merch.
It's Spittin Chiclets merch, because it's free, and two, because it's awesome. I think we've done a great job in the way we've designed it and gotten it out there. And it's so cool when, I go to a Bruins game back home in Boston, and I'm just walking around the concourse with my brother or so, and you see people wearing your merchandise that you designed and that you put out there. And that's one of the craziest things to me. And it's funny, the other day I was walking through New York, and I saw someone, we have these Battle of Alberta shirts that we designed, and it's a really cool design. And I was eating lunch with my girlfriend, and I looked outside and I saw some guy wearing the t-shirt. Instantly I dropped everything and I just sprinted outside just to go be like, thank you for buying that shirt. It means a lot to see you in my t-shirt.
Obviously there was never a point where you had to start pressing the t-shirts. That's part of the Barstool support, right? But
yes,
I feel like you've still gone through the journey, even though you got to start with the cheat code. Effectively, you basically started with 20,000 listeners. You sound like you've still gone through every step of it, and you are, as I said to you just before, you're at the middle of it. You're making these things turn. Obviously the guys that are professional hockey players have lived with some level of fame, or being recognised and notoriety. At what point did you go, is it been video all the time for Chiclets?
The video kind of came into effect a few years after, about a year or two after, but we've always been all over social, blasting our faces out there.
When was the first time that you were like, oh God, people know who I am?
It was 2017, when, it's crazy. It's actually a crazy story. This was, again, this is before We had blown up. This is before we were getting all those big downloads. It was the 2017 playoffs. It was the Nashville Predators against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And, we wanted to go down to Nashville. We thought it would be good to, grow our brand and get our brand out there for the Stanley Cup Finals, just to have a presence down in Nashville. And, long story short, we submitted it to Barstool. We ended up getting rejected. So me and RA were like, you know what? We still believed in, that we should have a presence in Nashville. So we just paid for ourselves. And we got on the next flight. We stayed in these terrible hotel rooms. I think I slept on the floor of his hotel room. And we went down to Nashville. And when we were posting, and we talked about it on the show the week prior, that, hey, we're going to go to Nashville. We're going to be there. If you're there, come meet up with us. Come say hi. Thinking that no one would come. No one would recognize us.
Sounds like you made the same mistake again with the bar.
Made the same mistake again. And when we were down there, kids were coming up to us and telling us that, they're from middle of nowhere in Tennessee, and they drove there to see us. And I remember this one kid was like, yeah, I'm from West Virginia. I heard you guys were coming, so I drove here to see you. And you're like, I didn't even know you knew who I am. So when you're sitting at a bar and someone's like, Grinnell across the bar, you're like, I used to think, oh, I probably went to college with this kid. But then they come over and they're like, huge fan of the show, man. And you're like, wait, you know who I am? How do you know who I am? And that Nashville was a really crazy experience for both me and RA to be recognized like we were. But now still, man, it's like when anyone ever comes up to me and recognizes me, I'm like, I'll always just like, I'm smiling ear to ear when I think about it. Cause it's like, who would ever want to come up and talk to me or take a picture with me? It blows my mind every time. And that's why when anyone comes up and talks to me or asks to take a picture, I always, and this is something I've learned from Ryan and Paul, is take the time to talk to these people. Don't just, take the picture and move along. Like talk to them, ask where they're from, ask about their life, because these are fans of the podcast. You want to keep them engaged, and I want to know about them too.
The group of guys that you're with, obviously it's dream come true material for you. What have you done in hockey that you clearly never would have done in hockey? Have you been on the ice at games, or has it got there?
I think we've done some cool stuff. I think in between the Blackhawks, we went to we have this really cool video on our YouTube. When we were in Chicago, same time as that live show, the Blackhawks brought us onto the ice. They brought us down onto center ice and gave us all a chance to shoot on the net, and with the whole arena watching, and it was a really cool experience. I think another thing that was really crazy for me was when Sidney Crosby invited us up to Halifax, his hometown, and when to have one of the greatest players in the world, one of the greatest players ever, to invite you to his hometown, to go to his restaurants, to go to his golf course, to see his life. It was that was really cool. And I have a cool story where we were out at dinner one night, and it's Paul, Ryan, Rear Admiral, Nathan McKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche, Sidney Crosby, and then a few camera guys, right? And you know how sometimes when you're at dinner, there's the big dogs are down one end and the quiet guys are down one end. The conversation can really be down one end, can be a lot quieter down the other. Well, I happen to be down the quieter end, obviously, with all the NHL superstar power down one end. And halfway through dinner, Sidney Crosby just looks at me and is like, "Hey, Mike, where are you from? How did you get involved with Spittin Chiclets? Tell me about yourself." And I remember looking at it, I'm like, why do you care? It was such a crazy, crazy experience for me that Sidney Crosby wants to talk to me. He cares what I have to say right now. And it was such a surreal moment. And it was, that's one thing I'll never forget as long as I live.
In terms of your podcasting life, how many shows a week go out under Spittin Chiclets?
It used to be 2.
Yeah.
We did 2 for a few years. And then we dropped it back to 1 this past season. And that's why the episodes are a bit longer, like you mentioned earlier, is because, you know, if we're not jumping on twice a week, we'll jump on once a week and we'll make it a bit longer so people can space it out. So we do 1 a week. And
there's no way anyone does that, right?
Say that again?
No way anyone spaces it out. You release a 4-hour episode, it's in the ears of people for 4 hours.
Yeah.
You could release an 8-hour episode and the same thing would happen.
It's tough to sit down for 4 hours and listen to anything, you know?
Yeah, but people do stuff, right? This is part of what we keep looking at is people with podcasting, especially now with AirPods and the like, where it's, I mean, I have podcasts going, basically, I mean, phone calls, but when it's not a phone call, there's a podcast running in my ears pretty much. That's just how people run nowadays.
And it's cool too, because now that a lot of people are posting their podcasts onto YouTube, I throw them on my TV and I have them as background on the TV playing all day. And I think that's how I like to consume them. Yeah.
I've got a load of questions. I'm definitely not going to put you through all of them, but the guys,
I'm having a blast.
Good. All right. The guys put out a tweet and they said, you know, that I was speaking to you. And did you see the tweet? Right. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Oh, so you've prepped the questions. I can get rid of this one about
I didn't look
when
at the questions, though. I wanted to be surprised.
What is something the listeners don't know about the 4 of you? That seems like an easy one to go into.
Something the listeners
what do they not know about the 4 of you?
That the guys work. I think that the guys work a lot harder than people think. I think, you know, a lot of people think that the guys, you know, everyone, we just sit down once a week to record a show and that's it. I think that these guys, you know, they grind. Paul is on calls all day for us. Whit is doing stuff all the time. RA's writing for us all the time. These guys, we put a lot of work into the show, and I know it's only once a week, but we're a lot more than just a show, like I said, and we're a full business, and everyone's involved, and everyone works their tail off. So I would say that these guys work a lot harder than people think.
It's amazing that it's incredibly difficult to make a 4-hour show feel like it's just 4 guys having a chat. It's not possible to just start recording 4 people and it go how the show goes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's tough. And just prepping all week to, you know, hey, what are we going to talk about? All right, well, let's transition from this topic and then we'll move on to that topic. And, you know,
who's the laziest? Who's the one that shows up at the show with the like, have you made that list of things you really...
I would say that would probably be... And I think he'd be okay for me to say this. That would probably be Ryan. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, he's the richest, so he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And 2, Ryan has he has such he's such a good memory. And the way he can break down a hockey game is unlike anyone else. I think for guys like me, Rear Admiral, and Biz, we watch a hockey game and then we need to, you know, watch the replays, watch the highlights, break it down, watch it a few times, see what other people are saying. Ryan can watch a game one time and then come on the podcast a week later and just shoot and be like, oh, the second period with 10 minutes left, this guy turned it over at this time. And you're kind of like, whoa, how do you remember that? It's just, he has such a good memory. So it's not that he's the laziest. He just almost
he's already got it all, so he doesn't need to.
He's already got it all,
yeah.
and he can just sit down and we just want Whit to be Whit. You know, that's kind of the thing with this podcast is as long as Whit is himself, then it's like he's gonna show up, he's gonna bust balls, he's gonna tell some funny stories, and it's not much prep is needed for that. It's just like, dude, just show up and be yourself.
Great. I feel like there's some ones here, so forgive me if I'm going to read something out that is either going to grossly offend you or has been. Do you skip leg day?
All at this point.
You skip leg day?
Skip leg day?
Yeah.
Always skip leg day.
How integral is that as a comment in the show? Is that frequently discussed? Your lack of.
See, this is what sucks about doing a show with two former NHLers, and it's funny because like this past weekend, Biz and I, we were like filming this like documentary thing, and we're sitting next to each other. We're both wearing like shorts, these like shorter short shorts, and I looked at him halfway through the interview, and I'm like, God damn it, Biz. Two of my thighs are the size of one of yours. So it's like, there's no winning. And it's like, people don't realize how tall these guys are either. Paul's 6'4", Ryan's 6'3", and Rear Admiral 6'2". So it's like, I take pictures with them, and like I'm 5'10", 5'11".
You look
right?
like a competition winner.
But then, I take a picture with them, and they're like, who's the Make-A-Wish kid? Who's this 5'5" Make-A-Wish kid? And you're like, dude, I'm just a normal sized guy. These guys are just huge.
I mean, I don't need to be a genius to decode this, but how much has your kill count gone up since you've started the pod? Oh, God. You did say ask anything.
Yeah. I would say it has helped me find a lovely, beautiful girlfriend. I'll say that.
I won't push you any further on anything.
Kill count's gone up. We'll say that. Significantly.
How do you wrangle in three pretty diverse hockey characters to make sure they don't ride off the rails every pod?
So Rear Admiral's very good at that. Throughout the entire show, me and RA are texting, and I don't even know if Biz and Whit know that actually, but me and RA will be texting throughout the whole show, and just about like, hey, how do we get them back on track here? Because Biz and Whit are the talents. They're the guys that people want to hear from. And, RA's job is to drive the bus on the show. And his job is to, when they go on a tangent about, some random thing like a Wilkes-Barre, strip club from 2008, it's RA's job to come to be like, hey guys, bring it back here. We're going to move along. Let's talk about the new signings and, X, Y, and Z. So I think, RA does a fantastic job at that, but just corralling them as a whole is super difficult. It's super difficult because you're dealing with guys who have already made their money, who don't necessarily want to be told what to do. So it can get difficult at times when, we need something done and, the guys don't want to do it. But that's on me to figure out. That's my job to figure out. All right, well, let's adapt. Let's figure out what we can do. And like I said, it kind of goes back to my number one trait for my job is how can I keep Biz, Whit, and RA happy? So if they don't want to do something, it's my job to figure out, all right, well, how can we get this done without you doing it? And that's also one of the reasons that I've had to put myself out there a lot more in the past few years. And like I said, I love being the center of attention, so I don't mind it. But, just for ad read purposes, like Biz and Win aren't going to do like a video of them rollerblading around New York City for an ad deal. That's on me. And so, it's corralling them is tough. But they understand that that's my job, and they try to make it as easy as they can for me. And that's why I love these guys, and I would take a bullet for them.
I was listening to one of the episodes, possibly one of the most recent ones. Forgive me, it was something that struck me that one of your guests was talking about, that people perceive professional hockey players to be really nice guys. And if you approached an NBA player or a football player in the same way that people approach hockey players, they just wouldn't stand for it. And I'm sitting there, look, I'm an outsider, right? I don't follow hockey. I'm from England. I'm like, couldn't be further from the demographic of the hockey league. But I do kind of know a bit about it, not just from Mighty Ducks. I spent a few summers in the States and like it was a thing, rink hockey rather than, indoor roller hockey rather than. And I get what ice hockey is, right? And to me, it seems like these are warriors that are supercharged, that seem to have a very short touch paper and then result in immediate explosive violence. Like there's no in between. They can be skating around for 5 minutes with no problems and one thing and off they go. Does that ever come into the studio?
No, it actually doesn't. And I think one of the cool things, and it's kind of this is kind of diving deep into the game of hockey, is these are your brothers on the ice. A lot of the times you see guys fighting, those two guys are going to go have a beer after the game together, and
it's like rugby. Rugby's the same deal in that regard.
It's similar in that sense, not to that extent. Rugby guys are sickos. And I love rugby. It's unbelievable. But it's funny because the fighters, the guys who fight, every time we have these guys on the show, they're always the nicest, friendliest, most happy-go-lucky guys. And the reason that they fought is because they're such a good guy and they're defending their teammates. Yeah. That's the whole reason guys fight is, hey, you just cheap shot our star player. Now I'm going to fight your guy. So it's the guy, like, for example, Biz was a fighter in the NHL.
That's a natural role, right? Like, someone in the team is if they're going to have a fight, they just don't let everyone kill everyone. They're like, okay, you two go duke it out.
They send the guys like Biz out there.
Right.
And if you ever get the chance to meet Biz, and anyone will tell you this, Biz is the nicest guy in the world. I forget all the time that Biz used to beat people's faces in the NHL because he's such a sweetheart. He's the nicest guy you'll ever come across. So when you see videos of Biz just punching people's face in, you're like, wow, I forgot he has that in him. But then you remember, you're like, he was doing that for his teammates. And I know if someone ever picked on me, he would do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, nice squad you've acquired there in terms of looking after yourself, huh? How often do guests ask for cuts, edits in interviews, like you just did before?
I would say that it's not too often that people ask. There have been times where agents will come in. We always give everyone final cut. I think that's
who cares, right? Like, you're not trying to scoop anyone. You're trying to have a chat.
One of our things is, and this goes back to Paul and Ryan playing in the NHL, is we're players first podcast. We'll always take the player side first, and which has kind of been cool for me because, I've always been the fan first. I see everything as a fan, and to see it from the player's point of view, it's been really cool. So understanding that, hey, he just said something here that I know it's not offensive and it's not bad in any way, but people might perceive it to be that way. So that's on me. That's on the agents to not let them not screw the players over. So there'll be times where I'll text guys and I'll be like, hey, you said this at this point. I don't really think we should put this out there. And guys will always be like, I agree 100%. There's never been a time where someone said, no, leave it in. But a lot of the times we're just talking about old hockey stories. There's really nothing that's said that ever needs to really get cut out.
How do you pick the opening song?
Well, that's something that's, it sucks because that used to be a fun part of my job, was picking out the opening song. We do a different song every week. But now there's, music rights violations, DMCAs, all that kind of stuff. So copyright. So we've kind of stuck with the same song for the past, 8-10 episodes. But, I think one of my next projects is going to be like working with a band and trying to, build a little jingle, build a little theme song for us because,
surely there's enough musicians in your community. They must send them to you all the time. Why don't you just start a competition and be like, we're going to pick one of them?
They do. That's why I said I got to work with them because none of them have been any good. We've gotten some good stuff sent over, but it's, I'm pretty specific with that. I like to come in hot where it builds up and then we come right in. And so if someone can send us over something, hey, I'm open and listening to everything.
You should just write a brief of what you expect it for and say, here's a couple of examples of songs that are similar to the sort of thing I'm looking for. And then they'll go treat it like Fiverr or something,
Yeah, exactly.
I bet they'd smash it for you.
They'd kill it.
After a podcast finishes taping, on average, how long does it take to edit? And what time do you typically go to sleep? And what time do you typically show up at Barstool HQ? Anything else?
This is something that's tough. It's tough for me because it was easy when I was young, like in my young 20s, but now I'm in my late 20s. It's getting tough, and
Let me tell you, as 40, it gets tougher.
Yeah, I can imagine. We'll record sometimes at 10, 11 p.m. with the podcast scheduled to drop at it has to drop right when I finish, so it should be it has to be out by 5 a.m., 6 a.m. the next day. So. Yeah, I pull all-nighters just about every Monday night. I'll do an all-nighter. I'll stay up all night editing the show. And, I'll go to bed on Monday, will be Tuesday. So I usually go to bed around 5, 6 a.m., sometimes 7. It takes me, you do a 4-hour podcast. You have to listen to it twice. You have to listen, just the editing process.
Double speed. Surely you listen on double speed, don't you?
I don't like to do that.
Really?
For the second one, I will, but I like to listen to it straight through so I don't miss anything. And I think recording 4 people in 4 different locations can be tough because there's a lot of, you're recording over Zoom. There can be a lot of, Wi-Fi issues or microphone issues. So, it can take anywhere from, 3 hours to 8 hours to edit the show. And that, we're not just, like I said, we're not just sitting down and going. We're going to stop halfway through, and sometimes we're like, all right, guys, let's take that over. I think we can do this better here, or let's take that back, or we got this stat wrong. Let's go back and record this. So it's just piecing together a puzzle. It takes some time.
At what moment do you stop and say to yourself, holy shit, this is my real life?
I think it's kind of a combination of those 2 answers before from Nashville. That time in Nashville, and then Sidney Crosby, dinner with Sidney Crosby. Those were 2 moments that will always stand out in my head. Like, wow, I did what I wanted to do. I can't believe I'm here right now.
Where's the next Chiclets trip, or where do you want to?
We got about 7 trips planned for this upcoming year. I'm on the road. I'll probably be on the road once a month for the entire season. I'll rifle them off for you. We have LA, Boston, New York, Vegas, Nashville, Arizona, Scottsdale. And that's just through March. So we're traveling a lot this season, but it's nice to get on the road. It's nice to, see these new cities. I was talking about it last night though, with a couple coworkers. People are always saying to me like, oh, you're traveling all the time. You must be just ripping it up in all these cities. I'm like, no, it's work. It's work when you're on the road. We don't stop. So it's any chance I have to go to bed, I'm sleeping and I'm resting every chance I get.
It's tough, right? Because people looking from the outside, and it looks like the best thing ever in the world ever, which I appreciate, and you definitely convey that you think it is. But again, much like you were saying about colleagues, there's a lot of work that goes into making it that much fun and that much, joyful to be a part of.
Yeah, it's kind of like this pond hockey the street hockey tournament we did this past weekend where, I was hanging out, I was having a couple drinks, I was having some fun, but at the same time, I'm working. We're talking, it's basically a 12-hour meet and greet all day. I'm talking to fans, hearing about their lives, hearing about their stories. But I'm also, I don't want to say running the show because we had Lisa Litvak who was paid to do that, and that's her job. But I'm also, I'm the Chiclets' eyes and ears. Like if fans are saying that, they don't want to play on this rink for the next game, I have to go talk to the people and find them a new rink to play on. So yeah, you're working all the time. People don't always understand that it might, while it's a job that is fun and it's awesome and I love it, it is a lot of work.
Presumably at some point, right now it sounds like, again, the description of you is not inaccurate. Who else produces it after you finish recording with you, or is it just you?
No, so it's funny. I did it by myself for 3 years. And then, as my role had become more administrative, had become more running the ship, running the business end of things, doing all those business calls, we know we realized we needed help. So we have help from a social guy who helps us out on social media. And then his name's Dale Morningstar. He's a character. He's the best. Spittin Chiclets memes. And then we have Sean Apuzzo, who is our video guy. He's a guy who, he edits anytime we do, we vlog everything now. If we go on a trip, we have a behind the scenes video that always goes out a week or two after. That's all on Sean. Sean does a lot of the podcast promos and stuff. He grinds for us. So we've made ourselves into a team here between Biz, Wit, RA, myself, Sean, Dale. We have a sales guy in Terrence. We have almost a eyes and ears in Canada and Jeff Jacobson. So we have a pretty awesome team that we've built. But it's crazy that we used to do this and it was just the four of us. We didn't have it. We had Barstool. We had the resources they had, but we didn't have a social guy. I had to do all that. We didn't have a video guy. I had to do all that. We didn't have a sales guy, or at least a liaison from the sales to production. I had to do all that. So I'm lucky now. I'm lucky now that we have some help.
It almost sounds like it is. It's easy to look at your story, as I'm sure you said before. People do, like, how spoiled are you? You landed in this done Barstool pod, but the reality is that even though you were part of this mammoth machine, if anything, that must have made it more difficult because you had immediate expectation, I assume. Because people must have assumed the pod was immediately going to succeed on the basis that it was a Barstool pod and it had proper pros with it, and you had all the things that would have been like, okay, well, this is easy, and yet you've clearly shown that there was so much to do.
I think, that's kind of one of the things that keeps me going every day is the drive to the expectations. We've set the bar so high where it's, and people say it all the time, and I really don't want to sound cocky or conceited here, but getting to the top is difficult. Staying at the top is 10 times more difficult. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. I feel like we are at the top of the hockey world, at least the hockey media world. And staying at the top is very difficult, but it's about adapting, learning what is, what people want, listening to our fans and growing and evolving. I think, that's where we've grown video. I think that's been a major emphasis of mine. Is to grow video. So, one day if these guys they wake up one morning and don't want to podcast anymore, they don't want to talk anymore, we still have another outlet that we can make money off of. And that is the video.
When part of the Barstool thing, forgive me again, by all means, tell me to shut up at any point. Didn't you become stakeholders in the show? In the way that is that not how it's structured? Have I made that up?
Yeah, it's the contracts are also crazy, but it's
because you talk about it.
Handle all that.
You talk about it in such a way where it's like, we make money, we do this, we do that. Well, yeah. I mean, presumably you're employed by Barstool, right? So
yeah, I think that goes with us. Spittin Chiclets being a thing before Barstool, and Barstool picked us up. So we make money if Spittin Chiclets makes money. I think it's easy to say that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Barstool is the best company in the world to work for, is because they're reasonable, they're rational. They, if the brand is making more money than we originally thought, they're gonna compensate you for that.
Wait. Where are you sitting right now?
I'm at my apartment in New York City. Got a nice little view out there. Not bad.
Beautiful. Of the river, no less.
Yeah, it's not bad. New apartment.
So, congratulations. So,
Thank you.
The gear you're using, tell me, like the podcast people want to know. You've got an MV7 in front of you. It must be fairly recent. What were you on before that?
So we did Yeti mics.
Did you?
We did Yetis for 3 or 4 years now, and they've never failed us. I mean, I make sure each guy has 2 or 3 at all times, just in case it breaks. But I think from an audio standpoint, they've done us well. It's a big part of my job is being that I'm remote. If something goes wrong, I can't just unplug it and give you a new mic on the spot. I can't, be your producer on site like it would be if we were in person. So simplifying, I think, has been one of my biggest things when we decided to go fully remote, and just making it so they can plug in their Yeti mic, tap the on button, and they're good to go. That was my biggest goal. But now that it's crazy too, because when we first started this, finding a USB mic was impossible. It was like there was Yeti mics and that's it, or you'd have to buy the adapter. And now it's like everywhere you look, you walk in a Best Buy, there's now like a podcasting section. You go to Guitar Hero, there's a podcasting section. Guitar Center, there's a podcasting section. So that's I usually like to evaluate audio, video improvements and quality during the off season. So right now we're in the off season, and that's why I made the switch to the Shure. I got all the guys Shure mics, so hopefully we can get those into effect soon. And it's been kind of fun and crazy to figure out, and I'm always listening to anyone and everyone for like suggestions on how you can improve audio, how you can improve video. Like we had a guest on 3 weeks ago, and his audio was immaculate, and he was using a Yeti mic, and I'm like, why is his audio so much better than ours? And right after the show, I called him, and he explained it to me how and why it was better. And
hey, come on.
Do you want the info?
Yeah.
So it was on Zoom. There was a setting in Zoom that wasn't clicked, and Zoom was changing the mic levels. It would auto adjust your mic levels.
The mic.
So I just unclicked auto adjust. You set your mic at a certain level, and then it records that way.
Sort of making me a bit itchy that I need to just check out some settings. The video stuff, do you just record the Zoom call, or do you get them to record themselves at their end and then send it? No, that must take too long. You've only got 6 hours or whatever it is.
That goes back to the simplification, man. It's I have to make it where like they're not sending me, like we record actually our audio files through QuickTime. I think that's a little trick that people should know if you have a MacBook computer.
Totally. Especially with those mics.
Yeah, and the audio sounds crisp. So we'll record the audio through QuickTime. We'll do the video through Zoom. And as long as you have like a Logitech camera, the video is going to look crystal.
Yeah.
And we record through a cloud server. So, of course, it's going to – you have to have good Wi-Fi. I think Wi-Fi has always been our biggest thing is – my biggest thing, at least, is when the guys go to a new location, if Ryan's, at his Nantucket house or Paul's on the road recording something – right when they land, I say, go to the hotel, run an internet speed test. And if it's not at a certain level, you got to find somewhere else to record.
Presumably 5G is going to kill that for you because you're just going to be able to pop it out anywhere, wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So you have to remote produce these guys. Did you? Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah.
Did you set them up completely? Was it like you need this laptop, this microphone, this set of headphones, and that way you can just deal with it because you know what's in front of you, right?
Yeah, and that's why, again, Barstool's awesome. I tell, the tech guy at Barstool what we need. He orders it, gets it shipped to their house. I'll get on a FaceTime with them, and I'll say, hey, here's how you set it up. Plug this in here, plug that in there. Let's run a test. And it's, like I said, as long as it's a simple and ezy process, it's not too difficult.
What advice would you give someone doing what do you call it? A sports community pod? I guess that's the best description of where you guys fit. What would you advise people if they were starting or have one, in terms of what were the big things that made you connect with that community?
I think one piece of advice that I always used to give someone starting out a podcast is get guests on. I think that's something that we really and growing our brand in that time where we really started to shoot up the ranks, we would really target which guests we were having on. And for example, say the Buffalo Sabres, say they're the talk of the hockey world right now. They just went on a 10-game win streak. Everyone's talking about the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to get a guest from Buffalo on that week because we know that Buffalo fans want to listen to hockey. Their hockey is on their mind. And so we're going to target Buffalo. And then if there's a week where, like right after the Cup, the Stanley Cup, if we can get a Tampa Bay Lightning fan on, because every other hockey fan, Tampa Bay Lightning player, every other hockey fan's checked out by then. It's July, they're on their boats.
Yeah.
But the Lightning, they just won the Cup. Lightning fans still want to relish in this a little bit. They want to enjoy this. So we're going to go and get a Lightning player. So I think that, and you're also, when you get guests on a show, is you're getting their fan base as well. You're introducing their fan base to a new product. So I think, when you can get guys that have a following come on your show, their fans are going to listen. So I think that was super helpful for us. And I think just now in today's world where the world in digital media is going, I think that growing a show on as many platforms as possible is your best bet to grow. And when I say that, I mean utilizing social media, utilizing TikTok, utilizing Instagram, utilizing YouTube, making video content, putting your show that is audio onto YouTube as video as well. I think that's something that people really need to, not everyone wants to listen to audio, and people kind of want to put a face to who's talking to them now. So I think, like I said, I watch all my podcasts on the TV now. So I think guests would be my number one, and my number two would be growing the brand on as many platforms as you possibly can.
You guys are certainly not frivolous when it comes to putting the Spittin Chiclets brand on things. Has it always been pink?
No, it was black and yellow.
Did it turn pink because of the lemonade?
Yeah, so the whole pink came into effect when we launched the vodka, which is Pink Whitney vodka, which was that we haven't even gone into that, which is
can we? Because let me, my very, very brief of that, right? I read something on the internet and I thought, that can't be right. I'm going to read that again. And I read a different source and go on, tell us about the pink.
So it's a vodka called Pink Whitney, and I'm wearing the shirt for it now. And we own our own vodka. It's crazy. It's the highest selling flavored vodka in North America. So it's a successful vodka. It's been crazy. And it all started, so New Amsterdam Vodka came on as our presenting sponsor. So for the first episode, they said, we want you guys, when you open up the show, to, introduce this new sponsor and let's just talk about how you like to drink your vodka. So we went around the horn. I think I said I liked vodka Red Bull. I think RA said he liked it straight. Biz might have said vodka soda. And Ryan was like, he's like, you guys call me what you want. Say this is feminine, but I like pink lemonade, not yellow lemonade, pink lemonade and vodka. And that's my go-to drink. And out of nowhere, everyone just starts tweeting us and Instagramming us, hashtag Pink Whitney, hashtag Pink Whitney, hashtag Pink Whitney, like sending us their pink lemonades and vodkas. And, we realized that we needed to act on it. And shout out to Biz, Paul Bissonnette, being the businessman that he is. And he grabbed the trademarks and all that stuff right away. And, we started working on Pink Whitney, the vodka. And it was so crazy because I have a funny story here where it was about 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. And I knew that we were developing the drink. I knew it was something that was in the works. And I got asked, hey, Mike, do you want to come into a meeting with like the New Amsterdam execs? We're going to do a little taste test. So I'm like, oh, okay. It's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Sure. I guess I'll do a little, get a little tipsy.
Bit late for me, but yeah. All right.
And so we sit down and we go into this room, and there's, you know, a glass at each seat, you know, with a pink liquid in there filled to the top. So these are big glasses. So I'm thinking, okay, I think we're doing some type of like mixed drink. I think this is like a vodka in a can type, like a vodka soda mixed drink. So we sit down and, you know, everyone cheers. You know, I hope they're like, everyone have a sip. Let us know what you think. So I'm like, all right, it's, you know, pink lemonade and soda. I'm going to throw it back. So I chugged it. I thought it was pink lemonade and soda.
And it was quarter of a bottle of vodka.
And the guy next to me is like, dude, stop. It's straight vodka. It's straight vodka. And I'm like, I'm like, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like about to throw up because I just chugged half a cup of vodka. And, but then it was crazy because then they're like, we have A and we have B. Which one do you like more? And we all said A. And next thing you know, we're in Hollywood filming commercials for it, and it's been insane. It's been really cool, and it's been awesome. Like, for example, my friend had a golf tournament last week, and I was able to sponsor the tournament by Pink Whitney and provide Pink Whitney for the whole tournament. And it's just so cool to be able to say, like, you're a part of this. You like have your own vodka.
You have the vodka. Not just a vodka. Look, we're nearing the end, but I want to know the story. Your story is extraordinary in terms of the path and the fact that it's come from literally the beginning, literally. You know, the whole episode 2, you joining. I just love that. I love that how you got in there at that point and how, you know, ever present. Where does it go? Like, how much bigger? Presumably, the lifestyle brand that you guys are rolling out, and that presumably turns into exactly that, a lifestyle brand of all the other bits and pieces. At what point does the hockey? I don't know. I mean, you're never going to lose the hockey, but what point does the chat become as big as the hockey, and then does it turn into 2 different shows? Do you end up with a hockey show and a guys show and you know, that sort of thing? What you must have looked at it or thought about it.
I think the sky is the limit, man. And I that sounds cliche, but like I really believe that we're gonna take over the world, and whether that's in alcohol, whether that's in hockey, whether that's in live events like the street hockey tournament we did this past week and the pond hockey tournament we did last year. I think the sky is the limit, and I'm just so happy to be a part of this brand and have the creative freedom that we do to be able to try new things and keep experimenting with things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. But my vision personally is growing our YouTube channel to where we can have tons of current and former NHLers on there and using that as a platform to grow their brands and to get their personalities out there. Because I think when Ryan and Paul talked about doing a show when they were in St. Louis together, when they played on the Blues together, their main goal was to get the great personalities in hockey out there. You know, so more people can see how cool some of these guys are and how awesome some of their stories are. So I think if we can do that with Spittin Chiclets and just use our video platform to just grow and showcase the game as much as possible, I think that's a win for everyone. And then you have all the live events. I think the live events is something that, you know, we've really gone heavy into recently. And I think with Pink Whitney, with street hockey, we're going to go heavy into the live events.
Have you done live pods?
We have. We tried to do a live show, like I said, in Chicago, but the audio guy didn't bring a big enough speaker so no one could hear. Yeah, it was tough. That was one of the most stressful days of my life.
I can't imagine.
It was one of them. I challenged the guy to a fight. That's how it ended. So
yeah, it's easy when you've got your squad behind you, isn't it?
Oh, when I got Biz behind me, it's like and I have the whole crowd of Chiclets fans. It was like 600 against 1.
That sucks.
Yeah, we did a live show in Dallas, and it went very well at the Winter Classic a few years ago. Yeah, I think that's definitely in the possibility.
I think I'm probably duty bound. Do you know we do Podicon? You know what we've got our live pods. So we're doing London in November, and I believe that New York is the next stop on the.
Well, let me say this: I think Spittin Chiclets is coming overseas soon.
When are you coming to London?
So I'll say this: our host Ryan Whitney is a diehard Chelsea fan.
Oh, really?
He lives and breathes Chelsea football. So we are gonna and like I said, we do these golf matches.
Yeah.
We do these golfs. So we're gonna come over. We're gonna come to England, and my family's from England. So I'm big.
Oh,
into,
where?
Manchester.
Okay.
A little north of Manchester, actually. But we're gonna come to England. Gonna play some golf. We're gonna go to a Chelsea game, maybe Chelsea versus Arsenal, and yeah, we'll be overseas.
You're gonna record a pod when you're here?
Oh, we'll record one.
You're welcome to the studio. I'm in North London, which is where you're going to be. So you can have this studio perfect. If you want it. And you guys, there's 4 seats. You're welcome.
Oh, that looks like a beautiful studio you have there.
Oh, this was a lockdown project, basically. That's a lie. I've been in the event industry for 20 odd years, and about 3 months before the pandemic, I gave it all up to start a podcasting company.
Well, good for you. You're killing it.
Terrible timing.
I took a picture of your set.
Timing.
I took a picture of your set already, and I when you got up earlier, I took a picture of it, and I'm going to send it over to Barstool.
Oh,
I'll
send you
4 of those.
I'll send you the stuff. I'll send you a better shot so you can see what it is.
Perfect.
But yeah, we were shut down as we opened for the pandemic, and I was like, oh no, I built this massive studio and it's full of gear and no one's allowed to use it. But we were patient and made it through. Look, it's amazing to speak to you. Your journey, sadly, with you being 10 years my junior, is still one that I would look at with I really hope I get to do that one day. And when you're in London, definitely look us up, because we definitely hook you up here, and it would certainly be good to meet you. And I pretty much know where you'll be playing golf. I'm fairly certain.
Who's your football team? Who's your team?
I'm Spurs. We've got Man City on Sunday. We're going to get beat. It's going to be a terrible start to the season.
So I am a Wolverhampton guy.
Oh, okay.
Don't know how it happened.
How did that happen? Northern supporting a Midlands team.
And saw. So I'm half English, half Italian.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's very Italian. And one day I just saw this chant they were doing for Patrick Curtoni. And it was Patrick Curtoni. He loves the pizza. He loves the pasta. And I was like,
I'm in.
I was like, who? I texted my buddy who played soccer. I said, what team is this? He said, it's the Wolves. I said, say no more. That is my team. And I've been following him ever since.
Like properly? Like you'll check them out that's your football team to look at for the scores if it comes.
Oh yeah, Sunday mornings. That's what I'm watching.
Amazing. Look, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. I'm pleased we got to do it in the end. It was totally worth it.
I know. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
No problem.
I can't wait to hit you up when I get to London.
Yeah, please do. And I'm sure as your journey progresses, we'll catch up again, and we can look back at this one and go, do you remember when that was it?
Awesome,
anyway,
man.
good to speak
so
to you.
much.
Thank you so much.